Chapter 4. Sharie. Sharie had long eyelashes. She weighed only 49 pounds. She always wore a big red and blue overcoat with a hood. The overcoat weighed 35 pounds. The red part weighed 15 pounds. The blue part weighed 15 pounds. And the hood weighed 5 pounds. Her eyelashes weighed 1.5 pounds. She sat next to the window in Miss Jewls' class. She spent a lot of time just staring out the window. Mrs. Jewls didn't mind. Mrs. Jewls said that a lot of people learn best when they stare out a window. Sharie often fell asleep in class. Mrs. Jewls didn't mind that either. She said that a lot of people do their best learning when they are asleep. Sharie spent all of her time either looking out the window or sleeping. Mrs. Jewls thought she was the best student in the class. One afternoon, it was very hot. All of the windows were open, yet Sharie still wore her red and blue overcoat. The heat made her very tired. Mrs. Jewls was teaching arithmetic. Sharie pulled the hood up over her face, buried herself in the coat, and went to sleep. "Mrs. Jewls," said Kathy, "Sharie is asleep." "That's good," said Mrs. Jewls. "She must be learning something." Mrs. Jewls continued with the lesson. Sharie began to snore. "Mrs. Jewls, Sharie is snoring," said Kathy. "Yes, I can hear her," said Mrs. Jewls. "She must be learning an awful lot today. I wish the rest of you could be like her." Sharie began to toss and turn. She flopped over on top of her desk. Then she rolled over on top of Kathy's desk. Then she rolled back the other way. Kathy screamed. Sharie rolled out the window. She was still sound asleep. As you know, Mrs. Jewls' class was on the 30th story of Wayside School, so Sharie had a long way to go. After she had fallen 10 stories, Sharie woke up. She looked around. She was confused. She wasn't in Mrs. Jewls' class, and she wasn't at home in bed. She couldn't figure out where she was. She yawned, pulled the hood back over her eyes, and went back to sleep. By that time, she had fallen another 10 stories. Wayside School had an exceptionally large playground. Louis, the yard teacher, was way over on the other side of it when he happened to see Sharie fall out the window. He ducked under the volleyball net, hurtled past the kickball field, hopped over the hopscotch court, climbed through the monkey bars, sped across the grass, and caught Sharie just before she hit the ground. The people in Mrs. Jewls' class cheered. Sharie woke up in Louis's arms. "Darn it, Louis," she said. "What did you go and wake me for?" "I'm sorry, Sharie," said Louis. I'm sorry, Sharie repeated. "Is that all you can say? I was having a wonderful dream until you woke me up. You're always bothering me, Louis. I can't stand it." She laughed and hugged him around the neck. Louis carried her back up 30 flights of stairs to Mrs. Jewls' room. That evening, when Sharie went to bed, she was unable to fall asleep. She just wasn't tired. Go figure. Chapter 5. Todd. All of the children in Mrs. Jewls' class, except Todd, were talking and carrying on. Todd was thinking. He always thought before he spoke. When he got an idea, his eyes lit up. Todd finished thinking and began to speak. But before he said 2 words, Mrs. Jewls called him. "Todd," she said, "you know better than to talk in class. You must learn to work quietly like the other children." She wrote his name on the blackboard under the word discipline. Todd looked around in amazement. All the other children, who had been talking and screaming and fighting only seconds earlier, were quietly working in their workbooks. Todd scratched his head. A child was given 3 chances in Mrs. Jewls' class. The first time he did something wrong, Mrs. Jewls wrote his name on the blackboard under the word discipline. The second time he did something wrong, she put a check next to his name. And the third time he did something wrong, she circled his name. Todd reached into his desk and pulled out his workbook. He had only just started on it when he felt someone tap him on the shoulder. It was Joy. "What page are you on?" Joy asked. "Page 4, Todd whispered. "I'm on page 11, said Joy. Todd didn't say anything. He didn't want to get into trouble. He just went back to work. 5 minutes later, Joy tapped him again. Todd ignored her. So Joy poked him in the back with her pencil. Todd pretended he didn't notice. Joy got up from her seat and sharpened her pencil. She came back and poked it in Todd's back. "What page are you on now?" she asked. "Page 5, Todd answered. "Boy, are you dumb," said Joy. "I'm on page 29. "It isn't a race," Todd whispered. 5 minutes later, Joy pulled Todd's hair and didn't let go until he turned around. "What page are you on?" she demanded. "Page 6, Todd answered as quietly as he could. "I'm on page 200, Joy shouted. Todd was very angry. "Will you please let me do my work and stop bothering me?" Mrs. Jules heard him. "Todd, what did I say about talking in class?" Todd scratched his head. Mrs. Jules put a check next to Todd's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. Todd really tried to be good. He knew that if he talked one more time, Mrs. Jules would circle his name. Then he'd have to go home early at 12 o'clock on the kindergarten bus, just as he had the day before and the day before that. In fact, there hadn't been a day since Mrs. Jules took over the class that she didn't send Todd home early. She said she did it for his own good. The other children went home at 2 o'clock. Todd wasn't really bad. He just always got caught. He really wanted to stay past 12 o'clock. He wanted to find out what the class did from 12 to 2. But it didn't look as though this was going to be his day. It was only 10:30, and he already had 2 strikes against him. He sealed his lips and went back to work. There was a knock on the door. Mrs. Jules opened it. 2 men stepped in wearing masks. "Give us all your money," they demanded. "All I have is a nickel," said Mrs. Jules. "I have a dime," said Mauricia. "I have 13 cents, said Leslie. "I have 4 cents, said Damien. "What kind of bank is this?" asked one of the robbers. "It's not a bank, it's a school," said Todd. "Can't you read?" "No," said the robbers. "Neither can I," said Todd. "Do you mean we walked all the way up 30 flights of stairs for nothing?" asked the robber. "Don't you have anything valuable?" Todd's eyes lit up. "Sure we do," he said. "We have knowledge." He grabbed Joy's workbook and gave it to the robbers. "Knowledge is much more valuable than money." "Thanks, kid," said one of the robbers. "Maybe I'll give up being a criminal and become a scientist," said the other. They left the room without hurting anybody. "Now I don't have a workbook," complained Joy. Mrs. Jules gave her a new one. Joy had to start all the way back at the beginning. "Hey, Joy, what page are you on?" asked Todd. "Page 1, Joy sighed. "I'm on page 8, laughed Todd triumphantly. Mrs. Jules heard him. She circled his name. Todd had 3 strikes against him. At 12 o'clock, he left the room to go home early on the kindergarten bus. By this time when he left, he was like a star baseball player leaving the field. All the children stood up, clapped their hands, and whistled. Todd scratched his head. Chapter 6. Bebe. Bebe was a girl with short brown hair, a little Bebe nose, totally tiny toes, and big brown eyes. Her full name was Bebe Gunn. She was the fastest draw in Mrs. Jules' class. She could draw a cat in less than 45 seconds, a dog in less than 30, and a flower in less than 8 seconds. But of course, Bebe never drew just one dog, or one cat, or one flower. Art was from 12:30 to 1:30. Why, in that time, she could draw 50 cats, 100 flowers, 20 dogs, and several eggs or watermelons. It took her the same amount of time to draw a watermelon as an egg. Calvin sat next to Bebe. He didn't think he was very good at art. Why, it took him the whole period just to draw one airplane. So instead, he just helped Bebe. He was Bebe's assistant. As soon as Bebe would finish one masterpiece, Calvin would take it from her and set down a clean sheet of paper. Whenever her crayon ran low, Calvin was ready with a new crayon. That way Bebe didn't have to waste time, and in return, Bebe would draw 5 or 6 airplanes for Calvin. It was 12:30, time for art. Bebe was ready. On her desk was a sheet of yellow construction paper. In her hand was a green crayon. Calvin was ready. He held a stack of paper and a box of crayons. "Ready, Bebe?" said Calvin. "Ready, Calvin," said Bebe. "Okay," said Mrs. Jules. "Time for art." She hardly finished her sentence when Bebe had already drawn a picture of a leaf. Calvin took it from her and put another piece of paper down. "Red," called Bebe. Calvin handed Bebe a red crayon. "Blue," called Bebe. He gave her a blue crayon. They were quite a pair. Their teamwork was remarkable. Bebe drew pictures as fast as Calvin could pick up the old paper and set down the new one. Set down the new. A fish, an apple, 3 cherries, bing, bing, bing. At 1:30, Mrs. Jules announced, "Okay, class, art is over." Bebe dropped her crayon and fell over on her desk. Calvin sighed and leaned back in his chair. He could hardly move. They had broken their old record. Bebe had drawn 378 pictures. They lay in a pile on Calvin's desk. Mrs. Jules walked by. "Calvin, did you draw all these pictures?" Calvin laughed. "No, I can't draw. Bebe drew all them." "Well, then what did you draw?" asked Mrs. Jules. "I didn't draw anything," said Calvin. "Why not? Don't you like art?" asked Mrs. Jules. "I love art," said Calvin. "That's why I didn't draw anything." Mrs. Jules did not understand. "It would have taken me the whole period just to draw one picture," said Calvin, "and Bebe would have been able to draw 100 pictures. But with the two of us working together, she was able to draw 378 pictures. That's a lot more art." Bebe and Calvin shook hands. "No," said Mrs. Jules, "this isn't how you measure art. It isn't how many pictures you have, but how good the pictures are. Why, a person could spend his whole life just drawing one picture of a cat. In that time, I'm sure Bebe could draw 1,000,000 cats." 2,000,000, said Bebe. Mrs. Jules continued, "But if that one picture is better than each of Bebe's 2,000,000, then that person has produced more art than Bebe." Bebe looked as if she was going to cry. She picked up all the pictures from Calvin's desk and threw them in the garbage. Then she ran from the room. "I thought her pictures were good," said Calvin. He reached into the garbage pail and took out a crumpled up picture of an airplane. Bebe walked outside into the playground. Louis, the art teacher, spotted her. "Where are you going?" he asked. "I'm going home to draw a picture of a cat," said Bebe. "Will you bring it to school and show it to me tomorrow?" Louis asked. "Tomorrow?" laughed Bebe. "By tomorrow, I doubt if I'll even be finished with one whisker." And I am going to go ahead and stop there, and please join me for the next few chapters.